Los Angeles, a city known for its glitz, glamour, and golden sunsets. But behind the palm-lined boulevards and million-dollar mansions lies a brutal truth. In this documentary, we infiltrate the heart of Skid Row, expose the drug-soaked alleyways, and uncover stories that mainstream media dares not show. The stench of urine, the sight of collapsed bodies on sidewalks, the eerie silence after a midnight overdose. It's a reality you can't smell from a Hollywood tour bus. As the wealthiest zip codes sit just miles from tents and trauma, we ask, how did the City of Angels become ground zero for America's homelessness and fentanyl epidemic? Stay with us. The truth is darker than you think. Number 1. LA's homeless emergency. As of early 2025, the number of unhoused individuals in Los Angeles County has reached an alarming milestone. More than 75,000 people living without stable shelter. Of that number, nearly 45,000 are concentrated within the city limits, sleeping on sidewalks, under bridges, in parks, and in their cars. It's the highest homeless population in any American city, surpassing even New York. Zoom in further, and you'll find Skid Row, a haunting 4-square-mile stretch in downtown Los Angeles that now houses nearly 4,000 unhoused residents. This area, once a refuge for transient laborers in the early 1900s, has become a permanent camp of desperation. Most people here don't just lack a roof over their heads. They lack safety, privacy, and basic access to sanitation. So what exactly has pushed this city, one of the richest in the world, into such an extreme housing crisis? To understand, we need to look at the impossible math of living in Los Angeles. The average monthly rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the city is now hovering around $2,800, a figure that continues to climb year after year. Meanwhile, the median income for renters falls below $50,000 annually. That means many people are spending over 60% of their income just to keep a roof over their heads. For those earning minimum wage, affording rent is simply out of reach. Now add to that the long shadow cast by the pandemic. In the years following 2020, hundreds of thousands of Angelenos lost their jobs. Industries like hospitality, food service, and entertainment, the lifeblood of the city, were hit the hardest. And while some have bounced back, others fell through the cracks. Without work, without savings, and often without a support system, many found themselves out on the street within months. But this crisis isn't just about rent and economics. It's also a mental health emergency. Roughly 1/3 of Los Angeles's homeless population lives with a serious mental illness. Disorders like schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, and chronic depression, conditions that are hard enough to manage with stable housing, become almost impossible to treat when someone is living out of a tent or a car. Access to psychiatric care is severely limited, and in many cases, law enforcement becomes the default mental health responder, a broken system trying to patch another broken system. Layer on top of that the relentless spread of addiction. Many people living on the streets are battling substance use disorders, and in a cruel twist of fate, drugs often become both the cause and the coping mechanism. Without access to treatment, support groups, or safe detox programs, the cycle becomes inescapable. So what does this look like on the ground? Walk down San Pedro Street at dawn, and you'll see rows of tents pressed wall to wall, blue tarps tied to chain link fences, grocery carts piled with everything someone owns. You'll hear the hum of generators, the hiss of butane stoves, and the quiet murmurs of people waking up to another day in survival mode. In some areas, RVs, rusted, broken down, and parked illegally, serve as makeshift homes. In others, entire families sleep in their cars, windows fogged by cold breath. And the smell, a mix of trash, urine, and desperation, hangs in the air long after you leave. This isn't just poverty. This is urban collapse in slow motion, a humanitarian crisis unfolding in real time in the middle of one of the wealthiest cities on Earth. And yet these numbers only tell part of the story. Behind every statistic is a name, a face, A life derailed by bad luck, broken systems, and society's indifference. The contrast is gut-wrenching. Less than 3 miles from Skid Row, luxury condos worth $5 million rise skyward. Rooftop pools shimmer in the California sun, while people below fight for space on the sidewalk. This is Los Angeles, the city of angels, but also the city of abandoned souls. Number 2, fentanyl's deadly grip. If homelessness is the face of Los Angeles suffering, then fentanyl is the invisible hand dragging that face into the dirt. Right now, over 1,400,000 people across Los Angeles County are dealing with substance use disorders. That's more than the entire population of San Diego, living every day under the grip of addiction. And among all the substances flooding the streets, there's one that's claiming more lives than any other: fentanyl. Fentanyl isn't just another drug. It's a synthetic opioid, roughly 50 times more potent than heroin and up to 100 times stronger than morphine. Just 2 milligrams, about the weight of a few grains of salt, can kill a human being. And it's everywhere. Back in 2015, fentanyl barely registered on overdose charts in California. Deaths involving this drug have skyrocketed, increasing nearly 20-fold in less than a decade. In Los Angeles County alone, fentanyl was responsible for more than 3,500 overdose deaths last year. That's nearly 10 people a day. Gone, suddenly and often silently. So what's fueling this deadly surge? Part of it lies in the economics of addiction. Fentanyl is cheap to manufacture, easy to smuggle, and devilishly potent. Dealers often cut it into heroin, cocaine, meth, even counterfeit pills that look like prescription medications. Many users don't even know they're taking it until it's too late. But it's not just users on the fringe. Students, veterans, working-class parents, no group is immune. One bad pill at a party, one line of powder laced with the wrong thing. In a matter of minutes, their bodies shut down. Their breathing slows, then stops. And now, the streets of Los Angeles have become an open-air theater of this tragedy. In neighborhoods like Skid Row, Kensington, and parts of Hollywood, it's not uncommon to see someone slumped against a wall, motionless, not asleep, not resting, but teetering on the edge of death. Paramedics and outreach teams race against time, injecting naloxone, administering CPR, hoping to pull someone back from the brink. Sometimes they succeed. Too often, they don't. Walk through these areas, and the signs are everywhere. Discarded syringes line the gutters. Empty pill bottles scatter the sidewalk like breadcrumbs in a fairy tale gone wrong. The smell? It's a mix of chemicals, human waste, and despair. You'll see the telltale signs: pinpoint pupils, blue lips, bodies curled up in alleyways like ghosts trying to disappear. And it's not just the users paying the price. Hospitals across Los Angeles are overwhelmed. Emergency rooms report a steady flow of overdose patients, many of whom require intensive care or repeat visits. Detox facilities are bursting at the seams, with wait lists stretching into months. And still, the crisis grows. Even the first responders are breaking down. Firefighters and EMTs have seen so many overdoses, they've started carrying multiple doses of naloxone at all times. Police officers, often first on the scene, walk a tightrope between enforcer and lifesaver. But here's the part no one likes to admit. Fentanyl thrives in the same environment that breeds homelessness. Think about it. When someone loses their job, their home, and their support network, and they're left alone on the street, in pain, what's the fastest way to escape that pain, even for just a few hours? A needle, a pill, a high. And once that loop begins, it's incredibly hard to break. It becomes a vicious cycle. Addiction leads to homelessness. Homelessness deepens the addiction. Both spiral toward an early grave. This isn't just a public health issue. It's a moral reckoning. Because behind every overdose is a story. A high school athlete with a bad back who got hooked on painkillers. A single mom battling trauma who found solace in a blue pill. A teenager who took something from a friend thinking it was harmless. They weren't just addicts. They were people. So what are we doing about it? Los Angeles has ramped up harm reduction efforts. Mobile clinics now distribute clean syringes and fentanyl test strips. Naloxone is being made more widely available, even handed out at public libraries and bus stops. But many argue it's not enough, that we're treating symptoms, not the disease. We need more than Narcan. We need prevention, education, and long-term recovery programs that offer real chances at healing. We need to fix the root causes, poverty, trauma, lack of access to mental health care, before more lives slip through the cracks. Because right now, the streets are screaming. And if we don't listen, if we don't act, the silence that follows might be louder than we can bear. Number 3, Skid Row exposed. Now let's take a closer look at Skid Row, the epicenter of the crisis, a place where the American dream has been stripped down to bare concrete and blue tarps. It started back in the late 1800s. At the time, Los Angeles was still a dusty outpost, a city in the making. Skid Row was never glamorous. It was a rough pocket of town where migrant laborers, ex-soldiers, and job seekers passed through looking for work, food, and maybe a place to lay their head for the night. Cheap hotels, flop houses, and rescue missions sprang up to serve this flow of people. But as the city around it boomed, thanks to Hollywood, aerospace, and tech, Skid Row didn't rise with the tide. Instead, it became a magnet for those left behind. Over the decades, wave after wave of people found themselves funneled into this narrow corridor, not by accident, but by design. It was easier for the city to concentrate homelessness, mental illness, and addiction in one place than to deal with it everywhere. Now in 2025, Skid Row is no longer a temporary stopover. It's a permanent camp, a zone of abandonment. Stretching across more than 50 city blocks, that's roughly 1 square mile, Skid Row is home to an estimated 8,000 unhoused people, and the conditions are unlike anywhere else in the country. On some corners, tents are stacked edge to edge, forming narrow alleyways just wide enough for one person to pass. You can smell Skid Row before you see it, a mixture of sweat, smoke, decay, and despair. On hot days, the air turns sour. On cold nights, everything stiffens with frost and fear. You'll see people pushing shopping carts filled with everything they own: blankets, water jugs, old shoes, family photos in plastic bags. Others sit motionless on the curb, lost in a fog of mental illness or drug-induced stupor. Some scream into the void, others whisper to voices only they can hear. And in between all that noise is a silence so heavy it presses down on your chest. Violence is a daily reality. Petty theft, assaults, sexual violence, these aren't the exception, they're the norm. But what's perhaps more painful than the violence is the numbness. People get used to seeing someone collapse on the sidewalk, used to the sound of sirens, used to death. And then there's the loneliness. For many on Skid Row, isolation is worse than hunger. Family ties have frayed, friends have disappeared, phones are lost, numbers forgotten. Here, a birthday might pass without a single word. A death might happen without a single witness. No goodbye, no name on a stone. This is the cost of neglect. And make no mistake, Skid Row didn't just happen. It was shaped by decades of policies that displaced low-income communities, defunded mental health care, and criminalized poverty. When rent control laws were rolled back and affordable housing disappeared, the fallout landed here. When psychiatric hospitals closed in the 1980s and no alternatives were created, thousands were dumped onto the streets, many ending up right here. Even now, in 2025, this part of Los Angeles remains largely invisible to those just a few blocks away. A cocktail bar might be booming just up the street, its rooftop crowd sipping cocktails and watching the sun dip behind skyscrapers, completely unaware that someone died alone in a tent 2 blocks south. That's the paradox of Skid Row. It is both forgotten and feared, erased from policy plans but etched into every Angelino's mind as a place of hopelessness. And yet somehow life continues here. People cook meals over open flames, they laugh, they argue, they survive. There's a rhythm to the chaos, a strange resilience. But survival is not the same as living, and no one should be forced to spend their days just trying to make it through the night. Skid Row is not just a place, it's a question, one that stares us in the face. How did we let this happen? And more importantly, how do we fix it? Number 4, can inside safe work? So far, we've seen the suffering, the tents, the overdoses, the isolation. But what is being done about it? Are there real efforts in place to reverse this crisis? Or are we just reshuffling people from one sidewalk to another? Let's talk about Inside Safe, one of Los Angeles' most high-profile initiatives in recent years. Launched as part of Mayor Karen Bass's emergency response to homelessness, Inside Safe aims to move unhoused individuals out of encampments and into temporary shelters, often motel rooms. The idea is simple: stabilize people first, then connect them with services, and eventually get them into permanent housing. As of early 2025, the city reports that over 20,000 people have been relocated through the program. That's a number worth celebrating. Think about it. 20,000 people no longer sleeping on sidewalks, no longer exposed to the cold, the chaos, and the constant threat of violence. For many, just having a door that locks is a radical step toward dignity. But here's the hard truth. Temporary shelter is only the beginning. Keeping people housed is much harder than getting them off the streets. Many of those placed in motels eventually cycle back into homelessness. Why? Because while shelter solves the where, it doesn't solve the why. Trauma, addiction, untreated mental illness, these don't go away just because someone has 4 walls and a roof. And that brings us to support services, the lifelines that are supposed to catch people before they fall back. The city and county have tried to scale up access to mental health counseling, addiction treatment, job placement programs, and basic health care. These services are crucial. Without them, housing becomes a revolving door. But the reality on the ground? Resources are stretched razor thin. Take mental health, for example. According to county data, there are only enough full-time public mental health professionals to serve about 1 in 8 unhoused individuals in need. That means thousands are left waiting, untreated, or worse, ending up in emergency rooms or jail cells because there's nowhere else for them to go. The same goes for addiction recovery. Los Angeles County has seen a rise in demand for detox and rehabilitation services, especially in the wake of the fentanyl explosion. But many programs are short-staffed or have long wait lists. Some facilities turn people away because they simply don't have enough beds. Job support and re-entry programs are another piece of the puzzle. Helping someone rebuild their life takes more than a job fair and a resume template. Many people need vocational training, legal aid, or simply someone to help them navigate the bureaucracy. But again, staffing shortages and funding gaps limit what's possible. So who's picking up the slack? That's where nonprofit organizations step in. And frankly, they're the backbone of this entire ecosystem. Groups like PATH, the People Concern, and St. Joseph Center are out in the field every day, providing hot meals, case management, hygiene kits, mobile clinics, and sometimes just a warm conversation. It's not glamorous work, but it's essential. In fact, recent reports show that over 70% of community-based homeless services in Los Angeles are funded, staffed, or managed in part by nonprofit groups. These are the folks doing night outreach. The ones knocking on tent flaps. The ones showing up, even when the system falls short. And they're doing it on shoestring budgets. Many rely on donations and short-term grants. Others survive contract to contract. When public funding is delayed or slashed, it's these organizations, and the people they serve, who suffer the consequences. Yet somehow, they keep going. They keep showing up. But here's the bigger question. Is this patchwork system really a solution, or is it just holding things together with duct tape? Because when we talk about solving homelessness, we can't just mean moving people out of sight. We have to mean restoring lives. That means permanent housing options, not just motel rooms. That means comprehensive mental health care, addiction recovery, employment pathways, and legal reform. That means building affordable housing fast enough to meet demand and protecting tenants before they become tomorrow's statistic. Right now, the city is trying. Progress is happening. But the scale of the crisis still far outpaces the response. For every person housed, others fall into homelessness due to eviction, illness, or job loss. It's like bailing water from a sinking ship with a teaspoon. And yet, there is reason to hope. We now have better data, more awareness, and a growing chorus of Angelenos demanding change. Policy conversations have shifted from how do we clean up the streets to how do we support people with dignity. That's a big deal. But the road ahead is long, and it won't be paved with slogans or short-term wins. It'll take consistent funding, political courage, and a shared belief that no one, absolutely no one, deserves to live on the margins of society. Number 5, stories of hope. After all the statistics, the broken systems, and the sprawling crisis we've walked through, there's one question left that matters more than any number. What gives us hope? It's not always a government program or a billion-dollar initiative. Sometimes it's something much quieter, more personal. Hope looks like a former addict returning to Skid Row every Thursday night to hand out sandwiches, not because someone told him to, but because he remembers what hunger felt like. Hope is the volunteer nurse who spends her weekends patching up wounds on street corners because she knows healing doesn't just happen in hospitals. In the alleys and sidewalks of Los Angeles, change isn't always sweeping, but it's happening, one person at a time. There's the story of Delilah, a single mother who lived in her car with 2 kids for almost a year. Through a local church, she found temporary housing and a parenting support group. Today, she's working full-time at a school cafeteria and just signed a lease on a 1-bedroom apartment. Her youngest daughter, who once called the backseat home, now calls her new bedroom Princess Land. There's a rooftop garden in East LA, built by formerly homeless youth, that now supplies vegetables to a free kitchen down the block. There's a community theater group made entirely of people in recovery, putting on plays about survival, shame, and second chances. There's an encampment in South Central that's transformed into a micro-village, not through city funds, but through mutual aid. Portable toilets were donated by a local plumbing company. Solar lights came from a neighborhood fundraiser. What started as just another tent block is now a community with rules, gardens, and shared meals. It's not perfect, but it's powerful. And then there are the quiet moments, the ones no camera crew ever catches. A man helping his neighbor fix a broken tent pole during a storm. A woman braiding hair for 3 others, laughing in the sun. A teenager teaching someone twice his age how to read. These aren't policies, they're proof. Proof that even in the harshest conditions, dignity fights to survive. The truth is, systems don't heal people. Relationships do. Housing matters. So does healthcare. But sometimes, the first step out of homelessness isn't paperwork or placement. It's someone looking you in the eye and saying, "You matter." And that's something we can all offer. You don't need a badge, a title, or a grant to be part of the solution. You just need a heart that refuses to look away. Whether it's donating socks, writing letters to lawmakers, hiring someone rebuilding their life, or simply having a conversation with someone you'd normally walk past, your action ripples further than you think. Because real change doesn't start with a plan, it starts with people. And here's the thing about hope. It doesn't need permission to grow. It finds cracks in broken sidewalks and sprouts anyway. It lives in every handshake, every shared meal, every moment we choose kindness over judgment. So yes, Los Angeles is in crisis, but it's also in motion. And maybe that's the story worth telling. Not just the tragedy of what is, but the beauty of what's beginning. What we've seen in Los Angeles is more than a crisis. It's a reflection of a deeper, systemic failure. Homelessness and addiction here aren't isolated tragedies. They're symptoms of broken systems, frayed safety nets, and years of looking the other way. But behind every tent, every overdose, every sidewalk story, there's a human being. someone who was once a child with dreams, someone who, like all of us, simply wants to feel safe, seen, and supported. This isn't just Los Angeles' story. It's one that echoes across cities worldwide. And the truth is, we all have a part to play. Support local organizations, speak up for fair and humane housing policies, and most of all, don't judge from a distance. Choose empathy, choose understanding, choose to walk beside those who've been left behind. If this journey moved you, we invite you to join us in spreading awareness. Like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts or questions, and consider subscribing to NVL Travel Documentary, where we explore the places most people overlook and tell the stories that truly matter. Because travel isn't just about where we go, it's about what we learn and who we become along the way. Thank you for watching. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and until next time, take care of each other